good morning, good day, and good evening. I am as always your host, Brody Robertson, and today, this is episode 121 of Take of a Tea. And today, I've not just got one guest, I've actually got two. Welcome to the show, Asahi Lina and also Luna the Foxgirl. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. I'm Asahi Lina.
The,
I'm
the
very
instant I
tired.
started recording, everything started breaking. The bitrate on Discord just dropped by like 50%.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's fine. We'll deal with it's fine. Let me just make sure it's not on
Great.
my end. No, it's fine. Okay, Discord's just being Discord.
Well,
How
you
are
know
you
how
doing?
technology is. I am doing just fine. Well,
Lina, how
other
about
than I'm
yourself?
very tired.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I presume that some of you know, some of the guys listening know who you are, Lena. But how about you introduce yourself anyway, and then I guess Luna can introduce yourself as well.
My name is Asahi Lina, and I work on Linux kernel development. And right now I am working on writing a CPU driver for the Apple M1 as part of the Asahi Linux project.
Luna, how about yourself?
I'm Luna. I'm a game engine and game developer who decided to write a VTuber 2D model format thing, and now I'm using it, and Lena is using it. And oh god, everyone is not everyone, but a bunch of people are running my software, and I'm hoping it doesn't crash.
It is certainly getting a bit more attention. I know that a year ago, I think Ren talked about it on his channel, and then you've been slowly working on it, improving on it, and I've recently started hearing about it recently, and it seems like it's gotten into a much better state than it was, at least.
Yeah. Basically, what happened is when Lena was like a week, 2 weeks away from debut, we basically just speed ran getting it ready for debut, and I rigged her model in a week while very sleep deprived.
Yeah, that was an interesting 2 weeks.
I can't imagine that was it. Yeah, well, you're here now, so look, it's clearly not falling apart at this point.
So it's improving.
Hmm.
Yeah, like we didn't have physics when I debuted, so like my hair was like made of plastic.
Oh, well.
But now it's pretty good, you know.
I guess that's the problem with, what would you call it? Alpha software, beta software? Where
Yeah,
would you put it right now?
Weird. Currently, we're working on beta 0.7.2 of the specification, and of Notch Creator 0.7.3.
Awesome.
So,
well, before we get into any of the individual stuff that both of you are doing, why don't we talk about why you're both here together? Because I tried to plan both of you separately, and you both wanted to do the podcast together.
well, Lena has helped out a lot with Shadi. Like, she helped me doing the jam. That was like the week-long jam where we prepared for debut, and also she supported the project a lot throughout the time. So he's basically the first person to use the specification.
That's awesome.
Well, besides me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's basically the reason I'm here, right? Because I wanted to do the VTuber thing, but there was no open source software, and then I sort of ran into Luna and Linux 2D, and that's what really inspired me to to do it like this and to really go for it. So yeah.
Was that before? No, I guess it would have been after Ewan started doing his 3D stuff, but there wasn't anything on the 2D side.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking of doing it on the 3D side, but I wasn't too sure, and I like the look of 2D models more, but you don't want to use Live 2D because that's a Windows thing, and yeah.
Isn't there like ways you can get it working through Wine? But even so, if there's something that's going to be open source, you'd probably prefer to use that instead.
Yeah, and there's like weird licensing issues with it too, and like rules around the models, and it didn't give you a good vibe, really.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
That comes a bit into why I actually started developing in HTTP. But yeah.
Well, we can talk about that then, because I did hear the story about like where it came from on Twitter. But how about you just let people know how you initially came up with the idea?
Okay, so I was working on a game plus a game engine, a lesbian Foxgirl mahjong visual novel game. And I wanted to animate the characters, and I
Mm.
looked at Live licensing, was like, this is kind of bullshit. So then I started making my own thing, because I have a very bad case of not invented here syndrome. And
Don't we
then
all?
uh, then I later decided to take it out of the engine, and then I saw that the fact that like oh god, what was the program called again? Like the thing people used before, like VC Face and VTube Studio. The one that had like the dog avatar bundled with it. Oh god.
I hope you're
Well,
asking Lena because
that
I don't have an answer for you.
I don't remember what the application was called, but like it was bought up by another company or something,
Mm.
and suddenly they were switching like to a subscription model
Yep.
for it, and it was like, this is kind of trash. Maybe there should be like 2 monopolies for VTubing. And then I decided to basically spin it out to be like a full thing and stuff, just like a subsystem in my game engine.
Yep. Well, I can clearly see this like it's working in there's enough of a state where you can actually use it to do VTubing, but like where would you consider the state of it to be right now?
Like it is at like slightly past the minimal viable product.
Mhm.
So we have a few more node types we want to add and a little bit of optimization to the spec itself.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the specification is actually mostly done. And then it's just all the tooling that needs to be made not terrible.
Well, Lena, how do you feel about the state it's in right now? Because you're, I guess, the prime case of using it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's at this state where, like, if you're a technical person and you can write like simple code,
Yeah.
then you can use it because like there's no player app, so to speak. So I literally just have like a small script that maps the tracking parameters into the model. So there's no like UI for configuring for running it, right?
Right.
So that's in the works.
I am working
So
on
right
it.
now,
I can see why you said minimal viable product.
But that's Lina's working on that. And then as far as the editor, it's a bit awkward. I mean, it's really good. Like if you think about it from the perspective that she wrote it from scratch, and that there's a lot of things going on for bringing a 2D model. It's actually really good. But there's a lot of weird words and things that don't make sense, and a few big missing features that would make rigorous lives a lot easier. So it's usable, but like I feel a bit bad for some people using it, because there's so much. It could be so much better too, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's already great, but it could be so much better. That kind of deal.
There's a reason why when you open Notch Creator, a giant red text says, "This is beta software." At least when you're for the first time.
Well, at least it's clear the state that it's in. Then, like, it's not just like, hey, I'm gonna have this product here. I'm not gonna even acknowledge the state that it's in, but hey, if you want to try it, well, go ahead. I don't know what
Yeah,
it's
that's
gonna
more or
do.
less. I just want people to save often, and that is probably gonna crash a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also that a lot of features are missing and stuff. But yeah.
At least I had a Control S because it didn't have that before.
Well, that's because the GUI shortcut management is kind of like really annoying to deal with, so I haven't done much of it. Lena has improved that, and I am working on more stuff on improvement on the UI side. So like after 0.7.3 for Notch Creator, 0.7.4 will just be focused on like making the UI better, especially since the undo system is like half implemented. So there's some things you can undo
Yeah,
and some things you can't.
It's very broken right now. That's the
Right.
thing, right? Is like we've talked about a lot of features and now they should be implemented, but there's only so much time. So
Yeah, of course.
especially now that I'm busy with other stuff. So yeah.
Well, yeah, busy is one way to put what what you do. I've seen that you seem to do like minimum 7-hour streams.
Something. I think I did 1 3-hour one, but
Yeah, well, one 3-hour is basically 3 hours like my maximum for the most part. Maybe on a good day I'll do 4 hours, but 10 is 10's kind of extreme.
I keep reminding
I
Lena
don't
to
know.
like
I
get
just
food.
I just get in the zone and just start coding, and and it's on a stream, so it's like you don't want to stop until something works.
Yeah, yeah. Which, considering what what you've been streaming is kind of a big goal to get to. For anyone who doesn't know about what you've been doing, you've been heavily involved in the M1 GPU project, which, just for anyone out of the loop, explain what you're actually doing there.
So this is all part of the Asahi Linux project, which is about porting Linux and both the kernel and some user space bits, so that they run well on Apple's M1 and future Apple Silicon machines. So like all the new MacBooks and stuff. Because they're really nice machines and they're ARM and they run really quiet and low power. So a lot of people were interested in running Linux on them. So that's kind of the overall project, right?
Yep.
And so yeah.
Well, I'm sure
So what I've been working on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. So what I've been working on is the GPU side because you can actually get Asahi Linux today, but it just runs on a frame buffer, so there's no acceleration or anything like that. So Lisa and my sister Uni have been working on the Mesa side, on the sort of user space side of the GPU. And so there's a lot of existing reverse engineering of like shaders and all that, basically the part that goes into Mesa.
Yep.
But all of that was done on top of the macOS kernel, right? So there was no kernel side, and there was no reverse engineering of the GPU's sort of firmware interface or the hardware side. So there was that one missing piece, right? It's like, you got the Mesa side, you got the rest of the kernel running, and then there's this kernel driver missing. And so I just sort of jumped on that, and I've been working on reverse engineering it. And so, sort of at the beginning was a lot of research and tracing and kind of, getting huge screens of numbers on the screen and trying to figure out what they all mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the past few weeks, I've been actually writing a driver, a very cursed prototype driver. But it actually works now. And you can actually render things. And so just yeah, you can go ahead.
So I've been sort of watching the Asahi Linux project. Basically, I guess I'm not sure when was it announced. It wasn't that long after the M1 actually came out. Like maybe a few weeks, or like a month or so after that initially came out. I honestly didn't think the GPU would be in the state that it's in at this point. Like this seems. You and everyone else involved have done a lot of amazing work to get it this far.
Thank you. I mean, I think pretty much everyone involved, both finds it really interesting and also really fun to do. And that's we can have a very good team that we put together. So it wouldn't be possible without everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what does it mean now? Like, when did M1 come out? 2 years?
I think it was like December 2020. So it's been a year and a half now.
Yeah, past like 3 or so years have all blended together in my mind. I have no idea when anything happened.
I know what you mean.
Because I graduated uni in I think the 3 months after COVID started, and then everything after that is sort of blended together. I don't know when anything else happened around at that point.
Yeah, I think it's like that for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the M1 stuff, but most of everything else is just like I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it's pretty much the same for you as well, Luna.
Yeah. Well, Denmark's course in COVID-19 has been slightly different. We locked down pretty quickly, and we also started rolling out vaccines quite quickly.
Yeah.
So we got quote unquote over it. Not really over it. Quite quickly. So I was quickly sent back away from online schooling back to well, that was when I was getting education. Now I'm working at a games company, so
I don't know how much you can say about what you're doing or not. You did mention you had a NDA for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the stuff I do at work is under NDA. But I can tell that I work at a Danish games company, a company that has made games like Welcome to Elk and Inglet. Well, published Inglet rather, but and I helped a bit with getting Welcome to Elk running on Linux and Proton.
Oh, nice.
So.
Well, actually, that sort of leads me to something. How did both of you get yourselves into the whole FOSS and Linux sort of world? I guess,
That's an
Lena, you
interesting
first up?
question. Yeah. So when I was I think it was in like middle school or so,
Hmm.
I had a Nintendo DS, and I discovered that there was this thing called Homebrew that you can get on it. That people were making their own apps, and it wasn't like big games companies and stuff. And
Yep.
it all sounded so interesting. And so I started messing with that, and I ended up sort of teaching myself how to program, and it just kind of went from there. I started learning about writing programs in C and stuff like that. Just sort of over time, kind of ended up really interested in reverse engineering, because that's kind of for how all that world starts, right? Because there's no documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess I ended up here.
Well, it sort of makes sense if that's where you started, that you eventually, made your way over to, hey, let's write the driver for a GPU that has no documentation. All we have to go by is the existing driver on a completely separate operating system, so we can see what it's supposed to look like when the output's correct. But besides that, just make it work, basically.
Well, I mean, one thing that I tell people who ask me about reverse engineering is that it always pays off a lot if you write tooling first, right?
Mhm.
Especially as you learn sort of how to work with that unknown and undocumented hardware, then you kind of realize that like every hour you put into tooling
Mhm.
is a lot of time you're gonna save in the end, just by using it. So that's kind of the philosophy that I follow, right? It's like, okay, it's a big black box, but as you work on tools, those tools help you actually understand it a lot faster, and you sort of go from there.
Hmm. I've personally never looked into doing reverse engineering stuff, but we'll definitely have to talk a bit more about that in a moment. But before we get into that, Luna, um, how did you get yourself here?
It all started when I was 5 years old, and I discovered something on my parents' computer called QBasic. And
Okay.
then from there, I learned programming. I used to be like a massive Windows, I don't know, fangirl, I guess. And then at some point, I was like, actually, nah. And then I started using Linux as a daily driver in 2012.
Oh wow. Okay. You've been using it a
Yeah,
lot longer than I have then.
yeah. I was back in the dark ages where nothing really worked.
Well, I've done a stream. Well, I think maybe like 6 or so months back, where I went back and looked at like early versions of Ubuntu. I went all the way back to 4. Is it the first version 4.04? Yeah, Warty Warthog, and I'm actually kind of surprised by how usable some of those old systems were. I'm sure daily driving it would have been a much different, a much yeah, much different experience, but it seems like it still would have been relatively usable even back then.
I'll just say that Broadcom used to be, and Realtek used to be really bad about Wi-Fi drivers,
Okay,
so
yeah,
I had to
Wi-Fi
do
I've heard
all
nothing
kinds
good
of
about.
cursed. Yeah, I used to really curse
Uh,
things, like install something called BCM-WL, and I had to download files from random places to get it working. It was terrible.
Right,
And I
right.
already had laptops to run it on. Um, but once I did get it running, and I managed to get myself a GPU, I could use Compiz, and then I got wobbly windows.
Everyone loves this wobbly Windows.
The wobbly
I like
windows
how
and the
many
desktop
people got
cube.
introduced to Linux UIs being cool because thanks to Compass.
Wobbly windows and burn your windows away.
Oh,
Those are my
I used
favorite
to do
things.
menus. I didn't burn my windows away. I
Yeah.
just used it on menus, so when I closed menus, they would burn away.
Yep, yep. Sadly, I missed that time. That I've gone back and looked at videos of what Compiz was, and it looks like it would have been a really cool project at the time. I know that when if I was using Linux when I would have been when Compiz were like really popular, like I don't know, mid-teenager, I would have really loved it. It looked ridiculous, and it looks ridiculous now, but it certainly looks like a lot of fun, if nothing else.
I think almost every Compass effect these days is actually supported in KWin. So if you really want those things, you can actually enable them.
I don't think there's a few effects I don't think work in KWin, but
Mhm.
they could be implemented pretty easily. One of them is like, so
Hmm.
for the desktop cube in Compass, you could make it a sphere, You could also make it a
Yeah, I
cylinder,
remember that.
and then you could make
Yeah, I
windows
didn't know
float
that.
above it and drag them around as they floated. And you could even get it to hack it a bit to actually work with wobbly windows doing that. It was pretty funky. But
That's
yeah,
it sounds like an interesting experience, but also sounds like kind of a terrible way to use your system.
it was terrible. But I was a teen, and I loved the weird graphical effects that it gave me,
Yeah, that totally
even if
makes
they
sense.
were very very inefficient.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
I love getting. Oh, sorry.
sorry. It doesn't seem like. Well, I'm sure that if we were to write, I guess that's sort of what Wayfire is now. Like, if we were to write a compositor that does have fancier effects like that now, especially if you start leaving Xorg behind, you can do it in a much more efficient way. But yeah, I can't imagine it would have been great for especially those older systems.
Yeah, so like I also played video games back then through Wine and stuff, and like whenever I dragged a window, the game would just go like 2 FPS due to like compass doing its stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
You
But
never
even
considered.
today, like Xorg, you get performance issues depending on what you're doing with compositing. Yeah.
And also amazing, well, tremendous amounts of screen tearing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can only
don't get me
imagine.
started on screen clearing. I mean, like, the part of the reason why I'm doing this GPU stuff is that right now I'm using an Intel iMac as my main machine,
Mhm.
with a Radeon card, and for some silly reason, like, power management doesn't work on it, so it's like NuVal, but for AMD. Because something Apple, I don't know why, it's weird, it crashes.
Mhm.
So it's running like underclocked, which means that on a 4K screen, it just about chugs along if I turn off compositing. But if I turn off compositing, then it tears. So I've been having a tear fest for like the past year, and I so want to fix that and just move to an M1.
What's worse, it chugging along and being unusable, or just tearing? What would you prefer?
Depends on what I'm doing. If
Mhm.
I'm like using a desktop, I prefer tearing. If I'm watching a video, I'm
Yeah.
not sure actually.
Yeah, no, that's totally
I'm
fair.
I'm so used to screen tearing because now getting into my depressing childhood trademark, but like I came from come from a very poor family, so we always had like really underpowered hardware. I ran a Pentium 4 all the way up to like 2010. So like screen tearing was just a part of my life and running games at like 10 to 20 FPS, sometimes 5.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of used to it, so I can kind of like just block out screen tearing. But like things chucking along at this point, now that I have good hardware, is just very hard to ignore.
Well, look, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't have an internet connection till 2006, I think. Yeah.
2008 for me.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay, maybe it was worse.
And
I
the thing we had then was like a USB dongle that used like mobile data, and
Yeah.
we got like I think 10 kilobytes a second down.
Oh wow.
It-
But before that point, I basically lived in the middle of nowhere in rural Queensland, and you weren't getting much out there. Maybe you could have probably got dial up, but my parents didn't even know what the internet was at that point, so they weren't gonna get it.
And I can imagine that like the internet pipes to Australia weren't great back then.
Well, the internet here didn't really get good. It's not good now. It's very overpriced, but it didn't really get good until like maybe 2016, 2017, maybe. Like right now, I've got 50 by what was it, 50 by 10, and we're paying like I think it's 70 Australian dollars a month, which is about like 50 USD or so. So it's like not
is it here?
horrendous.
Is it here where I humble brag about having 500 for around 50?
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. And Lena, why don't you tell me what you have?
I mean, I have a gigabit both ways. But I mean, I don't get a gigabit to like Europe and the US. So that's
Yeah,
one
yeah.
thing that I've noticed. Being in Japan, that there's your local connection speed, and then there's where you actually get like to the rest of the world, and
Right.
they're two very different things.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
Japan's in like it's in a weird spot because it's like because Europe's a very long way away. Like I'm sure
Yeah,
to
like there's like there's very little connectivity through like Asia and Russia.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
almost everything takes the long way around through the US.
Ah,
If you want to get
right.
to Europe.
Right, that explains it then. But hey, at least if you want to,
Yeah.
I don't know, read the local news, you can download a
Yeah.
gigabit.
And if you got mirrors, this is why Asahi Linux has like a worldwide CDN
Right.
for the installer images.
Mhm.
My ISP is starting to roll out 10 gigabit and might also roll it out in my area. That's they already have 10 gigabit for like business customers, but like they're rolling out for just home customers. The thing is, Denmark has like 50 ISPs that are all competing, so
Yep.
like the prices are really low. Plus, in Denmark, good internet connection is a human right, so they're also kind of pressured by the government to offer proper service.
Right. That would be lovely. Maybe I should move to Denmark. Australia Australia's problem is we don't have competition. We have a government monopoly, but they don't. It's not like, hey, they are required to offer a certain amount of speed. It's we will offer the bare minimum that will make people not hate us. So I think in certain like small areas, you can get gigabit. I think you can get gigabit as like a business connection, but it's like $150 a month or something. Yeah, it's not good. Soon I'm getting fiber at my house though, so I'll be able to get something better than what I have, but still not
Yeah,
gigabit.
I actually had 100 megabits symmetric at my previous place where I stayed briefly. And I mean that was pretty good too. So I think that's kind of the the minimum you can expect in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
But they are rolling out 10 gig. Like if you really want, if you pay for the construction fees and all that, you can actually get 10 gig. Thing is, I don't know what I would do with 10 gig.
Well, do you have?
Like I don't even have a 10 gig LAN, right? So like,
I was gonna say, like, do you even have 10 gig gear to use it?
We have
yeah,
So
there's a Mac studio around here for some reason, and then there's a 10 gig port, but I don't know. There's like an old switch that has some SFPs that I need to find some hardware for, and I think maybe someday I'll actually have a 10 gig network, but not right now. No.
we do have 10 gig gear because I live with a friend. I'm basically like renting 2 rooms,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a room and a walk-in closet from my friend who has a house. And when he bought the house, he also like got a loan for improving the house, and one of those things was improving the networking. So I helped a bit, but yeah, we rolled in. We have internally in the house we have 10 gig networking. We have like a cloud switch and a way too beefy router.
Yep.
So like we can run 10 gigabit technically here. We just need to upgrade the actual like fiber receiver.
Right. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing minus the 10 gig.
Yeah, but at my parents,
Yep.
like they are living. Well, I also live in like the middle of nowhere now, but they
Yep.
live also in the middle of nowhere, in an area that isn't really well covered by the ISP. Well, it wasn't, but now they have actually rolled out fiber. But like my parents are very cheapskate and want to only pay like $10 to $20 for the internet, so they have what was it like 10.1
Okay.
speed where they are.
I thought you were gonna say they have basically what I had for $10.
Well, it's 10.1 on a good day and like 5.0.5 on a bad day.
Okay, right.
Basically, complete unserviceable upload speed.
It's a connection. If you want to check your Facebook, maybe not Facebook, because Facebook, you'd be downloading all of images. That would be pretty bad. If you want
My
to check,
dad's a boomer. He checks Facebook.
if you want to check your emails and you don't load images, I think you'd be fine. Yeah, probably. That sounds horrible.
At least I got Linux installed on my parents' computer, so I don't keep getting like having to provide support from them, like absolutely just loading their PC with malware. They can't figure out how to do that now, so I'm safe for having to be tech support all the time.
Are they the sort of people that if you let them do it, they would just run the computer till it dies, and if they stay on Windows XP for the next 10 years, it'd be fine?
Yeah, it took me like first they refused turtlenecks, so it took me like a week to convince them to upgrade to Windows 7 from Windows XP, and like XP had been like out of service for like years at that point.
Yeah.
And finally I convinced them to like run Linux. I installed Linux Mint, and I have not had any like real tech support issues from them since then.
That's good.
See, I have kind of I have kind of the opposite problem because like my dad actually gets the tech enough that I don't have to like babysit him.
Yeah.
But he because he gets the tech, he likes doing interesting things like oh, the Wi-Fi doesn't cover the house. Well, let me take this old ISP router that's sitting in the closet and stick it on the other side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine how well that ends up. It's like, oh, the Wi-Fi isn't stable. And they're like, Dad, you're using the old DSL modem, like with 2.4, like catered to the 11G. Like I think that's not gonna work well anymore. But yeah.
Well, sometimes my dad does mess with the computer. Like
Mm-hmm.
he tried to put in more RAM, he put in the wrong kind of RAM. He tried, that didn't go well. He used to build computers back when like Windows 98 was new.
Yep.
And yeah, he's kind of like forgotten how computers work or something because he sometimes calls the RAM the CPU and other things the other thing. Yeah, no.
Yep.
I don't trust him with working with computers anymore.
I've luckily not really had to deal with that. My parents have always been very, very tech illiterate. I think it took me like 2 months to teach my mom how to send an email. And since then, she knows how to use her phone just fine. She can use Facebook and stuff. Recently she mentioned TikTok a couple of times. Like, please don't do that.
Oh no!
Don't actually get involved in watching TikTok stuff.
Oh god!
That sounds scary.
Yeah, a little bit.
I do also have to teach my parents how to use whenever they get a new phone. I have to teach them how to use it.
Yeah,
That's fun. And like they complain, why does this app not work? It's because you're not logged in, or you press the log out button.
Yeah.
You have to log in again. And then they forget the passwords for everything and ask me, and I'm like, I'm not your password database. I installed a password database for a reason.
Then they forgot the password to the password database, did they?
Bingo.
Yep.
Even though it was written on their note on their table, they could just have looked on the note. Yeah, it's an adventure with my parents.
Yeah, my parents, my mom especially had a book where she had all of the passwords written down. Just like, well, look, if you're gonna do that, you won't forget them, except when she like has passwords that are changed and then doesn't know which password is the current password and just cycles through all of them.
I think the
Does he get
stupidest
locked
thing.
out for too many login attempts after that?
I think the stupidest thing my dad has done was like back when like Bitcoin and stuff was like the craze. He wanted really to get into trading it, and I warned him a billion times that he would lose that money, and like in the end I just had to do it because like he would not relent, and then immediately that Bitcoin went to nothing, and yeah, he learned his lesson after he lost like I guess $100 would it be?
Okay, yeah.
On it.
I had my stepdad ask me about Bitcoin. I think it would have been after that like last big peak that happened. So like when everything was going crazy, literally everything could make you money. And his financial investor, like financial advisor, whatever, because he used to own a farm, he's got like a bunch of money sitting around. Was like, hey, you should put all of your money into Bitcoin. And he asked me about it because he knew that I had put money into it earlier. I was like, don't do that. Fire him. Find someone different if they're saying to do that.
Throw him in the dumpster.
I luckily sold out everything that I had during the last peak. And I've been watching it think like maybe I'll put some money back in, and then it's just like, nope, okay, I'm lucky I did that. I didn't do that.
Well, that was tangent upon tangent.
Well, this is what the show basically is. If it's getting tangents on tangents, that means that a conversation is happening. I can definitely work with that.
As long as we don't start talking about NFT.
Well, look, we can do that if you really want to.
I mean, the Nudge 2D wiki has a thing where it's like, we do not support NFTs or anything, and if that's what you want to use Nudge 2D for, please piss off. Like, that's like the actual wording for it. So yeah, that pretty much like clears up my stance on that.
That makes sense. I'm guessing yours is fairly similar, Lena.
Yeah, that's to say that I haven't seen the NFT market do good things for artists
Yeah.
recently.
I have heard a lot of people like I heard like mixed things about like NFTs and art. We'll ignore the whole like the monkey stuff and all of the dumb stuff happening with NFTs. I've heard sort of mixed things when it comes to like whether NFTs are actually a good thing for artists. I've heard from some artists where they'll have people buying their art, not sometimes paying for commercial licenses, sometimes not, and then making an NFT project with it, even though that was never really part of the agreement for doing the art. Whereas then there'll be other people who say, this is some way to sort of help to fund the artists and things like that. But I'm not personally involved in the art space like that, so I've got my own opinion on whether I like NFTs or not. But I'm not really sure whether it actually is helpful for the artist in the long run or not.
The thing is, I don't think I know any artist that is, like not already big that has actually made money with NFTs.
Right, that makes sense.
Usually when they do,
already making money, so it's just a way for people who have money to make more money, which doesn't really make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Also, a lot of the artists I see that actually like draw something that is not monkeys that do NFTs end up making that their entire personality. Probably because like they will not get any money unless they do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like once if you want to see someone who gets nothing but crypto in their world, just go through like Elon Musk's replies, and it's just nothing but like people shilling their whatever their project is.
Yeah, it's me don't like it.
But yeah, it's just outright spam too. Just people replying, tagging random people. It's nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just think they can just become rich from doing nothing. It's like, that's just, I could go out and actually make something that's going to improve the world or improve some sort of like niche that I'm interested in. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on this trend of selling monkeys, and I'm going to find someone that is dumber than me that will buy the monkey off of me, and then hopefully
pull the rock away under them.
And then if I have like this, if I actually made it myself, there's usually going to be like there's what's it called? There's a seller's fee attached, and like a part of that goes back to the original creator. So it's like, if I can just find someone dumb enough, I can just then convince more and more people to keep selling it, and I can just make millions from doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's everyone's dream.
Yeah, that's not how the world works.
No, definitely not. Especially with how it's been going recently.
If you're an artist and you want to make money, you should start drawing VTuber avatars, because there's actually good money in that. There's a lot of people who want them, and you're not betting on some random pyramid scheme.
Well,
so yeah, I would recommend that.
I was gonna say VTubers and also furry porn. Both of those are great ways to make money.
Not necessarily porn, just general furry art.
Look,
furries, there are suspiciously wealthy furries that will pay for it, no matter if it's loot or not.
I am not involved in that space, but I've definitely heard stories of how much some people have paid for art. It's just like, well, look, if that's how you want to spend your money, I'm not going to stop you.
I paid $800 American dollars for my model. But like, I also paid for commercial rights for like using it for streams and all that stuff. So
commercial rights is something that I've seen confuse a lot of people. Like I've seen just every so often I see some bit of drama about like, should this be like, should I have to pay commercial rights for this, or should I have to pay it for that? I think ultimately it's sort of, if you're going to be buying art from someone, it should be up to the artist to decide the specific terms of how they want their art to be used.
Yeah, and they should also make it clear so that the commissioner knows what they're getting into. There's a lot of people that like, I do not pay extra for commercial use and never specify what they think commercial use is.
Yeah.
I often, when that happens, I just ask them, whether my use case would count as commercial use, but like it would be nice if they like listed examples as well,
Yep, yep.
what they count as commercial use.
Yeah, I think I think it's very important that when you commission art like that, that it's. I mean, if at all possible, that you actually get to know the person, right?
Yep.
It's not just throw money at someone and get some art back, but like I'm basically friends with everyone who has worked with me on the stream design, the music, on the model and everything. So it's like if I have any questions about how to use it, I can ask them. If I'm like, well, do you want to help me with this, or
Mhm.
do you want to get some money from that, or that kind of thing? It's a lot easier when you actually know the person, right?
Yep.
So I would encourage people to always try that.
Yeah, my like way forward is I don't really know the people I commissioned that well.
Mhm.
Like the person who drew the chibi version of Ada, the Notch 2D mascot,
Mhm.
I like know them on the surface, but like it's not like I'm really friends with them.
Yep, yep, yep.
But I still like I'm still on like a talking stance with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right. That makes sense.
and like most artists are like on that talking stance where you can ask them questions about their commissions and
Yep.
what their rates are and all that fun stuff. So
And also, like, even if it's somebody you don't know, just like actually have a conversation with them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, not, like, not literally just like two words and about the art, and it's cool, nice done, right? It's like, but, but actually, try to have a comfortable conversation so that if anything comes up, you can always ask, right?
Yep, yep. Well, yeah, this because everyone's sort of got their idea of what they want to see happen, but I guess if you don't really form any sort of relationship with that artist, you're not really in a position to get anything fixed if they do anything that's not really like in the sort of vision that you have for it. You can always be like, hey, you get it, and it's like, oh, I don't like this, but you don't really explain what's actually wrong with it and do so in a way that is going to keep you on good terms, then I wouldn't expect any artist to want to go out of the way to actually address that.
for the most part, like it's a good idea you have like good references for what you want.
Yep, yep.
And as well, most artists like let you make request changes during the sketch stage. There are some people who just like really micromanage artists, which
Mhm.
don't go do that. Like I just really love art, so I usually don't ask for that many changes unless it's like something where like this arm is like the wrong place or something.
Yep, yep.
Sometimes they accidentally draw an extra hand, stuff like that. I'll let them know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Like someone might
I,
ask
I,
for
I've
that.
Like, I think it's good to always, like look closely at the sketches you get back. But also, there's a lot of things that are not hard at all to fix, right? So like, I asked my artist to draw some Discord emotes and stickers and stuff.
Mhm.
And there was like one where I was like the expression looks a bit off there, and maybe move the eyebrows or something. And it took like 5 minutes, right? And it was done. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing is no problem at all, right?
Yeah.
So it's always good to tell the artist about those things instead of sort of like forever thinking, oh, if I only said something.
Mhm.
And the artists also appreciate that kind of commentary because it also helps them improve. So it's
as long
as
as
long
you
as
know
you're
the
not
joke
like
about it,
micromanaging
Yeah,
every
of
single
course.
thing about the artwork,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah,
that
any
goes for VTuber designs as well.
Mm. Yeah, anytime I've got art commissioned, I've always tried to. I don't know. Maybe I'm annoying with how much I'll give them because I all the art that I've got done is based on my FF14 character. I'll give them like as many angles of the character as I can possibly get. It's like if there's anything here that you don't you can't work out in the design, here is more information, and hopefully you can work out what needs to be done here.
Most artists appreciate that though, like
Mhm.
when you give like full 360 references and stuff, because then it's way easier to know how depth works for the character
Yep,
and
yep.
stuff like that.
That makes
So
sense.
I actually
I
have
do have a
I actually have an issue there with my front hair because like originally I only had the front view,
Mm.
and so when I rigged it, like I didn't really get the feeling of depth properly,
Yep.
and then eventually I got like a corner shot in the center, and I'm like, ah, that's how it's supposed to work, right? So I need to redo that. I need to
Right,
redo
right.
the hair rig. to fix that. But it's not a big deal. But it's always nice to have more references. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also for VTubing, right? Because when you're VTubing, it can often be two different people, one drawing the artwork and then another one rigging it.
Yep,
And in
yep.
my case, well, it's just me, Luna, rigging it, but often it's another third party, and then there's a whole different conversation to be had there. So
Yeah. Speaking of Final Fantasy XIV, I do have a Final Fantasy XIV character, but it's more like reversed there. They're kind of I attempt to make them look more like my VTuber character as much as I can, but like
Yep.
there's no foxtails in the game. The closest I can get is a Mikote with like wolf ears colored yellow.
Yep.
I know you can get like the Tamamo headband from like farming Tamamo, but I don't think they look that great because you can like see the headband and it doesn't
yeah.
hide the Mikote ears.
Yeah,
Sorry, just
no,
Final
it's
Fantasy
fine.
14
I look. If you let me, I could talk about FF14 for the entire podcast, but
I have tried to
I
drag
got
Lina
the
into
MMO,
it.
so
well, yeah. Then you're just gonna sit there. And you're like, yes, yes.
Eventually I'll drag Lina into it.
you
Just
keep
like
saying that, and like and she's gonna drag me into Minecraft and everything else, and it's just like do I have time for that?
Luckily,
like,
both
I don't know,
these
MMOs
games.
just feel like such a time sink that they scare me. I'm sorry, MMOs scare me.
Luckily, both these games work really well on Linux, so you've got no excuse.
Also, Mahjong Soul, which also works well on Linux because it's a browser game.
Like Mario Kart's a good game. We can play Mario Kart.
Look,
Well, you'll have to get
I'm always
your
up for
capture
some Mario
card.
Kart.
Maybe we can do that then. That's like the one game I played recently is like Switch stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've been wanting to get a Switch for a long time. I just never got around to it. There's so many things that I've already got enough games that I want to play and not enough time to play them. So it's just like, do I want to get something else where it's just gonna sit there for a really long time?
I know the feeling. Back when the Humble Bundle was like a big thing?
Yeah.
That's why I have this like giant pile of Steam games that I haven't played.
Let's see, how big is my Steam library from Humble Bundle? 135 games.
It's not that many.
Well, some of them I've played for like over 1,000 hours.
Yo. Yeah,
where is that game?
There's not that many games I can think of I've put 1,000 hours into. Dark Souls 1, definitely. And RuneScape. But I'm never playing RuneScape again. That's not gonna happen. If you want something to waste all of your time, Lena, play RuneScape. It will take you...
I feel like very, like...
Don't do it. It's a bad idea.
Out of place here, because I don't think I've ever played the game for like more than like 100 hours.
I think when it comes to Final Fantasy, it's like the opposite of RuneScape. It's a game that like is happy about you putting the game down. Like for example, when you go into an inn, like when you go into an inn to like log off, like you just get experience bonuses every time you log in again, stuff like that.
And then there's RuneScape where it will take you literally 3 months, 24 hours a day to get to max level on one skill.
Okay, I found the game I spent like over 1,000 hours in, Terraria. 1,046 hours.
Jeez. It's definitely a good game.
Blink.
What was that, Lena?
I said blink. I really don't. The concept of putting that much time into a game is something that like my brain does not compute.
No, it's...
To be fair, I've played
totally
the game
fair.
for many years.
Yeah, well...
Like, it came out when I was, like, 12, 10? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I played it since, like, it was in, like... before they added all the Moon Lord stuff and all that stuff. Back when they just had added the Hallowed biome.
Ah, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's... sorry for... I played a pirated copy of it at the start. Because I was very broke. And now I do actually have the full game. But yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Minecraft back when I played that. I think when did I start playing that? I think it was I want to
I started
say
playing it.
1.31 beta. That sounds right.
I started playing it when it was a browser game.
Oh
So like
wow.
2010, 2009.
Wow. Okay. Well, to be fair, I stopped playing when the full release came out.
When the full release came out, I got bored of the game and started playing modded instead.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, Lena, you have more
I get
productive
that.
things to do rather than spending all the time playing video games.
Ah,
Now I make video games instead of play them.
Well, look, you can justify playing the games as research.
right. I mean, that's the other thing, right? Is I'm gonna have to at least try a bunch of games on the GPU to make sure that they actually work.
Well, yeah,
I don't
look.
think I'm actually gonna play through them, but I'm gonna have to install a lot of games.
Mm-mm.
And also, Lena, you do need to take breaks sometimes, so I will drag you into playing video games with me.
At
Just
least
you
eat
wait.
food.
Even it has.
Hey, I took a break and I made some music like a few weeks ago.
Yeah. At the very least, I'll drag you into playing like an open source game like Sonatic or something like that.
Yeah, I guess we can do that.
Play some Super Tux Kart.
I actually want to run that on the cursed driver. But the problem is that right now it only really works with software that runs on like surfaces, DRM, GBM, so like no XApps.
Mhm.
So we need to figure something out for that.
Yeah. Also, like, it also currently only supports like older OpenGL versions. So like, we had to make a quickly hacked together version of Initiative that ran on even older OpenGL versions on 3.2.
I did see. I also have things to do, so I can't watch a 10-hour stream. But I did see the part where you did get the it actually working, and it was working.
I was just in chat like helping her getting all the D stuff working.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I had to get like ETL working with D, and it turns out the bindings are like not quite there yet. So that was that was one of the many detours.
The OpenGL ES,
Yeah, it works.
Bind PC OpenGL ES is version 0.0.1 for reference. So
Yeah, and that was like desktop OpenGL on top of ETL, which wasn't supported at all. So I had to patch the OpenGL bindings to do that.
I did notice that Unochi 2D was made in D. I forgot this language even existed until I looked at the project. Why is it in D? What is there any reason for that?
I like writing code in D.
Fair
That's
enough.
well, there's multiple reasons. Well, one, again, I like writing code in D, and I started the project, so therefore I get to decide what's written in.
Yeah, totally fair.
Also, because like D is very close to C Sharp, C, C++, like all of those, so it's very easy to get into, unlike Rust. It's also natively compiled, and you can like expect what the garbage collector does. So, like you can actually write pretty optimized code with it, even if it has a garbage collector. And yeah, again, it runs natively, so you don't have all the overhead from a JIT compiler running.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never used D before in Studio, so but it was actually very easy to pick up because I use a lot of C and Python, and it kind of reminds me of both.
Yep.
You know, it's a compiled systems language like C, but you know, it's object oriented, and it has a syntax that is not you know, sort of like over the top like you know, like Java and C++ can be depending on what you're doing.
Oh, Java,
And
what a language.
like it actually feels quite. I don't know, it just feels comfortable to write code in. So like I actually would consider it if I'm doing like a game or a 3D app or something like that. It just feels like a good fit for that.
I've
Well, once
sorry.
I was just gonna say, once I do debut, I'm gonna stream making game engines in D and like talk to people about how game engines works and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's my deal.
No, I think that
I
would be a
so,
really
yeah,
good
so-
idea, actually.
Yeah, and you know it's actually it was actually kind of an interesting experience because like I wrote some of the algorithms for H2D, and I'm so used to writing you know, sort of high level algorithms in Python where you're
Yep.
like, oh, you know, this is like O(n) squared and it's gonna be terrible and you know anything like that, and then I do this like terrible algorithm and D is like, oh, it still runs at 60 FPS. I said, right, this is a compiled language. But because normally I don't write high-level algorithms like that in C, so it was kind of a weird. You're like, right, that's why you would use this kind of language. Have
And
experience for that.
and even if Shitty is not like re-optimized or anything yet, we still use like a tenth of the CPU processing power than Live 2D and like no net memory. I've seen people complain about like Live 2D's editor, and I've seen post images and like the memory usage is up in like the 16 to 32 gigabytes of RAM. I was like, yeah,
It's written in Java, right?
it's written in Java.
Oh, yeah. The JVM's not great about memory, is it?
It likes reserving memory and like freeing up the pages it reserves, so it just kind of booleans up very quickly.
Right.
D is not like that.
I can see
Especially
why.
with how
I can see why every big VTuber is like, hey, I'm gonna buy a 3090 and 128 gigs of RAM.
I actually read this. I'm using it right now for my VTubing. I ran all of this on an old, 10-year-old laptop with an NVIDIA card and Nuvo.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what you were running.
Yeah, like my streaming PC is like an old laptop with an NVIDIA, and it's one of the last generations that actually work well with Nuvo that don't have the firmware issue. And yeah, I mean it works, right?
A 10-year-old, where would that put the card? What generation?
Maxwell.
I think it's Maxwell, yeah.
Gee, well, look, it's functioning.
People have successfully run Inotchity on a Pentium 4 G6 650, and it still runs 60 FPS.
This is a GTX 660M.
Now, is there any any functional reason, like anything that's major missing from Inotch2D that would make it so it's much lighter? It's just the fact that Live 2D is just written terribly.
Live 2D is just written terribly.
Sure, right, fair enough. Look, maybe you're a biased source to ask that question too, but
I mean, we do a lot of things correctly. Live 2D does wrong. Like they do color blending wrong, so like people have issues with like weird outlines on their parts, and they also have issues where they only have two blending modes, so they can only do normal and multiply. We support more blending modes because we handle color correctly. I've had to help someone, just like on the surface, so I didn't actually write any Live 2D code. So, but yeah, I had to help them a bit with like an issue with it, and I just got a glimpse of how cursed it is to set up like actually rendering a Live 2D model. It is not pretty. So I can understand why it runs terribly. It's not very well written, and yeah.
Well, before Live 2D, there wasn't anything in that space. Like, I remember when Live 2D was first being demoed at, I think it was some games conference in Japan, I don't even know how many years ago. This was way before VTubing was even a thing. I think it was being demoed for some visual novel stuff or whatever. But
yeah,
it was the only thing that was doing
existed something before. No, there was something doing it before called Emote Engine, which was made by the people who make Nikopara, which also has an animation subsystem.
Yep.
And yeah, so it has actually existed before Live 2D, but Live 2D kind of got the limelight by not being tied to a specific engine. The same with Notch 2D, it's just a specification, so anyone can implement it. Someone is working on a Godot version, and I'll probably work on a Unity and maybe a web version, because a person making something called Kaleido Kit. I might be working with them to have a Notch 2D version of their online.
I know what that is. Yeah, okay, I forgot for a second, but no. Give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry, just talk about that for just a moment. I can't wait. What? Do you know what the website for it is?
Kaleido Face. I don't. You can just Google.
Yeah,
I don't know the.
Yeah, no, that's. I think I talked about this. I don't know, maybe I don't know when it first came out. No, this is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, web-based.
I'm actually in talks with most of the people within VTubing and also NVIDIA. So, NVIDIA actually sent me a graphics card because they wanted they have something called Maxine AR for face tracking, and they wanted that to work within Notch 3D. So they sent me a RTX 3070 Ti.
Wow.
For free. So yay!
Wow,
I don't
really
have
cool.
to pay for that. So I have to go look at that at some point. I have started looking at their API. It's gonna be it's different from all the other stuff because they are just applications that then send data over a socket. Here, I need to actually start seeing AR from FaceTrackD and then like pipe the data in somehow. So slightly different.
I had no idea that you had you're getting that far along with the project. I thought it was still some like really small thing that only a few people were using.
I mean, there's me, Lina, and Seagech, which is one of our Japanese users. There's also a bunch of people on our Discord that are like experimenting with it, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like ready for the average VTuber to use yet.
Sure, but like you're getting,
But,
attention from companies that are like involved in some way in this space.
yeah, I mean,
At
he
least
showed
me.
you at even some point.
Yeah.
He showed you even at some point where like offering to look into maybe sponsoring the project, but
Oh
they kind
wow.
of dropped that. So, but
That
that
would have
was pretty
been
cool.
massive if that happened.
Yeah, but it didn't. But I'm still still pretty cool that he even considered it.
Yeah.
So
Well, if they considered it, then it's always a possibility that them or someone else will come along down the lines, and when it's in a much better state, not a minimum viable product, at a stage where someone who's not a super technical user could actually productively make use of it, then at that point maybe something else will happen.
yeah, hopefully.
I think
For the
that
next, oh,
I think sometimes always like I'm very modest and thinking it's not gonna be like a huge project, but it's actually a kind of pretty big deal. I mean, it's not just open source, but it's also very friendly to game engines because it's permissively licensed. And it being lightweight is very important for games and also for VTuber collaborations. If you actually want to render locally and not use weird color like green screen tricks, which always is not great. And so there's actually a lot of reasons to use it, but then was always like, oh, maybe someday. I was like, it's gotta get there.
It's still the early stages, but it's come definitely a long way, that's for sure.
You should look up the editing tool. Like, I mean, I know it's missing a lot of features and it has, like the broken undo and stuff like that. But I mean, just seeing that, like, it's a proper UI, right? Like, you can actually just drag in a PSD and start moving nodes around and and adding parameters and like, okay, it's quirky, but it's not like I am typing in numbers into a JSON file. Like, it is a proper editor.
I'm gonna try to see if I can find. I have some videos of when like I first worked on the specification, and it's come a long way since then. So give me a moment. I need to look into my like backups and stuff.
Yeah, if you can find anything.
Oh wait, I think it's on my Linux drive. I'll have to like.
But no, that's just.
That.
Oh, yes.
Or I. Sorry.
I did two streams where I was rigging my decorating the physics engine and rigging my hair, so I do have a couple examples of how that works on my channel too. If anyone's interested.
Awesome. If you can find them, I will maybe put them in the description if I don't forget. But I'm very bad at remembering to do things.
I cannot find those videos because they are on my Linux drive, and I do not have a thing to read Linux files from my Windows thing right now. I'm on Windows 10 right now because I also need to make sure this thing runs on Windows for the Windows users that are using it. So.
Yeah, well, if you're going to be building something like this, you don't just want it to be, a Linux exclusive thing.
Yeah, we make sure it runs on Linux, Mac, and Windows. So.
Yeah. How is the how is the state of it coming along on the different operating systems? Is it in a better state on Linux or on Windows, or how's that going?
You're gonna get better performance on Linux than on Windows, but otherwise they're pretty much on par. So
that's good.
I think the main issue right now is the deployment on Mac is there's no CI and there's a big issue with the debindings and the building of libstl and some stuff on especially CMGUI on Mac. So like there's a build the build sucks basically. But once it's built, it works. So like if we fix the build scripts, then it can be
Oh, the build script has been fixed. So Plamer. Yeah, Plamer pushed fixes for the build scripts. So they actually work now.
Because when I had to try. Like I was trying on the M1s on macOS to see how it worked, and like okay, that I had to do some really really cursed stuff to get it to build, and then it was crashing, and then I realized it had to do with the PNG overriding the opposite PNG. Yeah, no, that was not great. And like nothing to do with the app, right? It was all about the dependencies and the libraries and everything. So yeah.
What right now would you consider to be like the major blocker that you have for an H2D? Like what is the biggest challenge you're trying to overcome with it?
The fact that I don't have that much time to work on it because
Yeah, fair enough.
I have a lot of like real life stuff happening, and also I also need money to like survive and stuff. So I also have to do my
Yeah,
day job.
That's very important.
I do have a Patreon, but like right now it's not enough to like support me working on it full time. But hopefully one day it'll be enough, and then I can actually
Subscribe to Luna's Patreon. Do it, everyone.
Yeah, I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. So if you want to go
Okay.
and support the project, absolutely go and do so.
Okay. But yeah, that's the main block. Okay, I actually did find a video of like when I was working on like a deformation test.
Oh yeah.
For like very, very early. And I didn't even have like a model yet, so I just used a picture I had around. So but yeah, that's very early days. Like when was this video? 2020 10/09.
Let me see. What can I do here? I can download this. Yes, this is how we can do this. I can download this. I can open it in my browser because I don't want to go and mess around with anything else. Yeah, that should work. But like feature-wise, what is there anything feature-wise that's sort of acting as a blocker right now?
It would mostly just be editor features like specification features. There's like I guess I'm working on like a post-processing pipeline. I'm working on a particle system node, an animated part node, and then we want like a bone node so they can have like skeleton animation as well.
Yep.
With both forward and inverse kinematics. And that's basically the only blockers in the spec that are for 1.0. So it's mostly just the tooling.
Yeah, like with the spec where it is, right? I mean, it works, right? Like I'm using it.
Yeah.
The actual spec is, there's things that Luna wants to add, but there's not really any blockers there. For people actually using it, it's really about the tooling, both making the editor, that's terrible for people who don't know exactly how it works. And also it needs like non-destructive deformations and like mesh deformations and things like that. And then on the user side, it's really session, right? Because like right now, we can make a model for someone, but like you literally need to edit source code to change the
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm working on session, so
I did see you meant. Oh, sorry.
I think once session works, we can start having quite a few people try things. Oh, and also we're getting those test files from Seagate, right? So anyone can use those and mess around with them. So that's pretty good. Because we don't have open test models yet.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna be Creative Commons licensed as well. So let's see what kind of curse shit people make with them. But
I did see you mention on Twitter that the live 2D format isn't supported inside of H2D. Is that something that's ever planned to happen if you ever work it out?
Not officially, because I probably won't officially support it because I don't want to be sued by Live 2D.
Right, yeah, that's fair.
But I'm not against someone else doing it as long as they don't like push it to the official repositories. Then they're free to try to map the formats if they want to.
But the main thing is that like H2D is not a clone of Live 2D, right? Like it doesn't work like Live 2D. So it doesn't really translate like one to one. So you could, it would be pretty easy to like import the models and the textures and the default positions and things like that. But like actually importing the rigging, that's not not that easy. And then you're not really getting that much. There's the whole story with like compiled models versus editable models, and artists not wanting people to edit their models, and there's a whole lot of discussion there too about sort of the customs in the VTubing world around model editing. So
I was going to say something, but I forgot.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, actually, I noticed that you. What was the license you've got on Nuchi2D? It is
Uh,
BSD
2
clause.
claws.
Why specifically that license?
Uh, because it makes it easy for game developers to include in the games, even if they're proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want it to be useful to as many people as possible, and GPL is kind of like
I
the
was gonna say,
antithesis of that.
if you want it to be useful, GPL's probably not where you want to go.
Yeah, at least if you're making a library, if you're making like for operating systems like kernels and stuff,
Mhm.
I see the like use for GPL because
Yep.
those are like important like subsystems, and it's best that they stay open.
Yep.
But
But
for
also,
a
it
game,
depends on what part of Linux, right? I'll let you finish, but I can talk about that too.
but yeah, specifically like the deep levels of the kernel, I think those should be like in a license that makes sure that people knows what's going on.
Yep.
Uh, but for like game development, they'll want to tweak it, and they probably don't want to start releasing the source code for the game
Yeah.
because then people could just like fetch the resources from elsewhere and remove any like anti-piracy checks or whatever, and then yeah, that wouldn't be very attractive for game developers. I'm personally against DRM, so I don't make my games have DRM, but I know a lot of other people do want DRM in their games, so I don't
I-
want to like stand in the way of that.
I was gonna say, I know there's like scuffed ways to work around it being GPL without necessarily integrating it within the project, but if you want it to be something, that's how do I describe? Like, if you want it to be something that's actually a core part of what is available in that tooling, yeah, I can see why you've not gone with the GPL or V2, V3, whatever.
And like
Yeah,
exactly one of the sort of big pain points of IFTD is the licensing, right? They have
Yeah.
some really weird licensing clauses. So if you want to compete with that, I mean, if you make a GPL, you're just bringing in another set of weird clauses. So
yeah. Like these clauses have like weird anti-competitive things. Like you're not allowed to use like competing formats in the same application.
Okay.
According to their license,
yeah,
which is weird.
I can see why you decided to just build it yourself.
Yeah. And also, you're not allowed to compete with other people in the marketplace as well, which is also a weird thing. They have like a marketplace called Nisima.
Uh-huh.
I
also, haven't they started like training an AI on like people's models now or something?
yeah, LiveCity is training people. Like when you sell stuff in Nisima now, they're training using your like rigging as trading data.
Okay. Look, I guess when you've basically got a monopoly on the entire market, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, it's just flicking out.
Oh,
Oh
what?
yeah, I think we just have networking issues.
Oh, it didn't. Maybe
Oh,
it was
back.
my side. I don't know.
Oh,
I think it was your side because we both saw you glitch out.
Oh, okay. What I was gonna say was, wait, what did I say? Right. If you basically have a monopoly, you can do pretty much whatever you want, and that's sort of the state that Live 2D has been, especially well, maybe not on the game development side, but definitely on the VTubing side.
the fun thing about the stuff they're doing with the AI is stuff you could do with basic trigonometry. So I don't know why they are training AI to do this stuff.
I have not even heard about
It
this.
was
So
a
what are
yeah.
they actually doing?
It's like
Uh,
they're doing like the face rig stuff where like when you turn the face you have to like deform the eyes in a certain way and all that kind
Yep,
of
yep.
stuff. But like that's really the same thing as just taking a 3D like mask of the face and doing what a 3D engine does, right? And then kind of
yeah,
tweaking
just
it.
basically
I'm not sure what that's about.
they're brute forcing the same as like just mapping the eyes and mouth to a sphere and then rotating the sphere, well, not a sphere, a cylinder, and then rotating the cylinder. But they're just brute forcing it with machine learning instead of just like doing a bit of math.
So this sort of
It
goes
is kind
more
of
into the
silly.
fact that Live 2D is written terribly. It's like, let's just make it as big and as heavy as possible.
Apparently so.
Sounds like they
I can't really speak for the developers, but
they actually have a deal with Nvidia and all of the RAM manufacturers to make people buy bigger systems.
oh wow,
That's
it would
that's the
surprise
theory
me
I'm
if
going
they
with
do.
now. Oh god, that sounds like a mess.
It is a royal mess, and that's why I decided I didn't want to use Life 2D, my game engine, for that like lesbian Foxgirl mahjong visual novel trademark.
I'm never gonna get over the fact that that's where it started from.
I'm gonna finish that game on stream someday.
Look, if Inertia 2D ever becomes like some major VTubing tool, that needs to be the tagline of it. Oh.
My cheeks hurt for laughing so
Never
much.
change, Luna. Never change.
Well, let's talk a bit about the. I completely ignored it for a while. We'll talk a bit about the M1 side because I did want to talk to you about that, Lena. Back when the triangle thing happened and everyone started talking about the triangle, I did see a lot of people not being sure like why that even remotely mattered. Like, it's a triangle. What's the big deal about a triangle?
Well, the big deal is that it actually worked, right? Because if you can render anything at all, that means like the entire framework to get to the rendering is working to the point where it can actually render something.
Mm-hmm.
And like most of the complexity in modern GPUs doesn't really have anything to do with the actual like triangular thing that's on the screen. It's just like a dozen layers below that are the same no matter you have one triangle or 27 or 2 million. So yeah.
So it did. What was I saying? It's been sort of interesting to see it come along from that point. Like I am not someone who has like a deep understanding about like GPU drive development. So seeing it sort of evolve as it has been, it's been really impressive to see from my side. But has it been going, as smoothly as you expected from that point, or has there been any extra hiccups that have happened like since then, or how's it going?
I mean, there's always hiccups because it's reverse engineering, right? So there's always going to be weird things. One thing that happened last week was that I was supposed to do the rendering myself on the GPU thing, and I got nerd sniped by Alyssa running into an issue with mipmaps because ESD uses mipmaps.
Yes, I'm slightly at fault there.
She did a test render, and like everything was fine except my lower lip was completely messed up. And it turns out there's like a weird formula to calculate the memory layout of mipmaps, and nobody knew what it was. And so we're like input, output, what's the algorithm, right? And I spent a whole like 10-hour stream trying to work this out, did not get it. Got pretty close though, and then the next day on Dougal, who's one of the folks that was helping out with that, like cracked it, and then I was like, that's what it was. But you know what's the funniest part? Is that the next day when I actually did the stream and I rendered myself, I just turned off mipmaps because it was taking too long to generate. Like they worked fine, and I could see they were gonna work fine, but it was just like, okay, I have a different problem now.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna turn mipmaps off.
Yeah, generating the mipmaps was like making it run out of memory as well, which is funny.
Well, it's because I don't free any memory.
Well, it's fine temporarily.
It's a prototype.
Look, as long as you don't leave it running for too long, it doesn't matter if you don't free up memory.
It's a prototype. Look, that code base was literally like start the program, render a triangle, shut down the program, right? You don't care about freeing memory. And then the next stream, I did like the bunny thing, and I literally was like, okay, I did one frame. Is it gonna do multiple frames? I did not expect multiple frames to work, and I tried, and it was like rendering multiple frames. It's like, wait, what? Wait, that wasn't the bunny. That was the cube. That was when I got to the cube.
Yep.
And so then of course it's like, well, you're doing multiple frames now. You probably should be freeing memory, but.
Yeah, just writing it like the decompiler does stuff. The decompiler is also only free memory when absolutely necessary trademark, which means that like getting LLVM to work with D is just like, D is now using 16 gigabytes of RAM. But
well, where does the sorry?
It's just like because I also sometimes delve into compile development, so I made my own programming language with LLVM, and I wrote it in D, and then just like I was running into issues where it was just like run for like 2 hours, and like just use all the memory until it crashed. So they did fix that later, but yeah.
So I know you've been doing a lot of stuff with using the M1 as an eGPU because I guess. Well, explain why you've been doing that anyway.
I mean, it's kind of a joke, right? Like, I mean, I've been using it as a development platform in a particular way,
Hmm.
and then I realized that like technically that qualifies as an eGPU, and so I just sort of made the joke, because it's funny because the M1 can't use eGPUs, but now I made the M1 into an eGPU. But no, so the thing is that when we do this reverse engineering stuff, this is what I talked about with the tooling, right?
Hmm.
Instead of like running software on the actual machine you're targeting, like locally, which very often means you're, like doing compile test cycles that you have to keep like rebooting and putting software into it and like, copying some files over and all that. So what we actually do is that we have a proxy that runs on the M1 bare metal, like there's no OS.
Yep.
And that just exposes a USB device because the M1 has a USB device mode.
Yep.
And you just plug it into another computer. And so that's basically a very dumb interface on that can let you like read memory, write memory, send commands and stuff like that. And then we have a Python shell and a Python framework that you can run on the host side. And we sort of prototype everything there. And the
Right.
thing is, because it's Python, it's a lot easier to mess around and prototype and script and make experiments. It kind of feels wrong if you're used to writing drivers in C. But then you realize that, it makes a lot of sense because you're running on a development machine and you're just testing, remotely. And the reboot cycle, when you actually need to reboot, which is not that often. Well, actually, for the GPU, I reboot every time because the firmware reset requires that. But most of the time when you're messing with hardware, it's like you have an interactive shell, right? You can literally just type, commands and read and write RAM and try things multiple times. And it's super, super fast. And so that's why it's, quote, an eGPU.
Yeah.
Like my
Okay.
entire, everything is running on my development machine and then just sort of puppeteering the M1 over USB. That's also why
Right.
NHTD is so slow because it has to upload all the vertex buffers every frame over USB 2.0.
Right. That makes
It's
sense.
like people are like 0.5 FPS. Well, like, well, yes, it's supposed to be that slow.
So if it was actually like running properly on the machine and not just, passing everything over USB 2.0, it would be in a state where it's actually like running, obviously not, as optimized as it possibly could be, but in a reasonable state.
I mean, it literally is spending all the time copying vertex buffers now.
Yeah.
And if you do the GL Mark II with Python over USB, I actually get like 15 FPS, even with that mess, and it's still uploading commands and stuff, right?
Hmm.
So I have no doubt that if I had a way of running the same code base locally,
Hmm.
30 FPS definitely,
Yep.
even with Python, because there's no reason why it wouldn't be that fast.
Yep.
Even 60, I don't know. Actually quite possible. So.
So where does the project go now? You've got it working. So what's the next step?
So the next step is that it's kind of working in the sense that we are rendering single frames in sequence
Yeah.
from a single app. So there's no multitasking. There's no I don't free memory. I know how to free memory, but part of the reason why I don't free memory is that I don't know when the GPU stops using some pieces of memory. So that's important.
Right.
And so the thing is, there's sort of different paths you can take from here, right? Like I could start writing a real kernel driver and get it, working to the point where it is working right now on the real machine. But the thing is, for it to work well, we still need to understand more things, right? So in the way I think about it is that it's worth spending more time with the Python, cursed stack, understanding things like multitasking, like parallelism, having multiple apps rendering at the same time, and just sort of prototype all that and understand how you're supposed to do that on the GPU, because it means that then when everything makes sense, it's almost literally taking the Python driver and rewriting it in C. I mean, not literally, but it's kind of close to that, right? And once you understand the hardware, it's a lot easier to write code that actually does what you expect it to do.
Yep.
So my plan right now is actually for the next stream, which is tomorrow, by the way. I'm going to be doing like some snooping on the memory as it's being written by the GPU, so that I can understand little details like when a render is finished, how the flags get set, how do I know that that it's actually done? How do I tell the GPU that these things have to happen in sequence and not at the same time? What happens if I do 2 renders at once in 2 different threads? What happens if I make a very slow render and then I want to interrupt it and like preempt it with another render? Like, I don't know anything about that, right?
Yeah.
So the next steps are going to be all about working that out. And once more of that makes sense, then I would like to start writing the real driver.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of work still ahead of you.
Yeah, this is quite a bit. But you know, it's been moving pretty quickly, so I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have it at a point where you can render a desktop sometime this year.
Mm-hmm.
What about très moi?
Oh god.
Just referencing
This
that, like,
person made an amazing like spoof subtitle video, and it was and I said in the video that it was gonna be done in 3 months.
and everyone was just like
and like
surprised.
someone on Phoronix already said like quoted that as like an official estimate.
Well,
So it's
And
like,
I'm just like,
I don't know
I'll
why.
try, but like I never said that, okay?
I don't know why anyone would take like edited version of Asterix and Obelix Mission Cleopatra as like
You need to
gospel.
watch that video. It was so great.
I've watched the movie. The
amazing.
movie's also great.
one thing I wanted to ask you about is a lot of people have been. I have no idea about this. I doubt you have much of an idea at this point, but I've seen a lot of people asking like, what's really going to happen, with the M2 systems that are coming out soon? Like, is this going to be something completely different? Is it going to be an iteration where, supporting that as well as isn't going to be as crazy of a jump as starting from nothing? Like, do you have anything that you might, think about it at this stage?
It's gonna be incremental because it always is incremental.
Mhm.
And if you need proof of that, some folks just got the Linux kernel running on like I think it was like an A9 or something, like a relatively older Apple SoC on iPads,
Mhm.
and it's like using all the Asahi drivers with minor changes. So there's going to be new things to add. There's going to be things that Apple changes. But they never start from scratch, and
Yeah.
they're actually one of the companies that take that most seriously because they realize that it's a waste of time to start from scratch.
Mhm.
So like when they have major GPU generation changes, that's going to need a lot more reverse engineering of like if the shader changed and things like that, the shader cores changed, but still you're still going to have the same design, right?
Yeah.
You have the same concepts. The firmware is probably going to be, basically using the same architecture. So it's a very, very different thing from starting from scratch. Because, like, the thing you spend the most time on is not literally, like what numbers mean, but like what the design, what the intent of the person designing, those structures and those instruction sets and all that was, right? So once you have that, it's very, very rare that it's going to be like complete from scratch, like nothing to do with it. That basically never happens. So yeah, I don't expect it to be, as nowhere take as much time as the M1 is taking.
So it's
Also,
not going to
like,
be like,
isn't, like,
sorry.
I was just gonna say, isn't like the M2 Mac Pro out now? So I'm pretty sure Mark Ken is just gonna get that like bootstrap pretty quickly
Probably.
too.
I have to ask him about that. But yeah, no, we should be finding out pretty soon, I guess. I don't know what, I mean, I guess at least it's gonna have to look at the, Mixer side probably first. And I'll poke around if I can get my hands on one on the, kernel side. But they sort of depend on each other, so
Yeah.
it kind of, yeah.
Because there was a lot of people that were sort of worried about it, but that sounds like it's in a much better state, much more iterative state, a much less of a disaster situation, like going from x86 to ARM, like a completely different paradigm. It sounds like it's something that can actually reasonably be worked on.
Yeah, and there's always like, the Apple things, like, how the boot process works and all that. Like, oh, that's all worked out, right? And they're not going to change that. To give you an idea, I was looking at the IRC channel, and because the people already can see the device trees, right? And like what the hardware is supposed to look like from a software perspective. And it looks like this time the sort of random new thing is the keyboard and the mouse controller got like touchpad and keyboard controller got integrated into the M2. So the interface for that changed. So like it's probably gonna be like, well, they we get the core drivers working and then the keyboard and the trackpad are gonna be a new driver, right?
Right.
That's kind of the level that you expect with this kind of generational change.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's even though the M1 project still has a lot of work to be done, I'm sure the M2 is still an exciting thing to see come out as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially once they start like M2 Max and whatever, they probably have planned with their superscalar architecture. I'm not working on. I'll just like preface this by saying I don't work on Asahi Linux. I'm a bystander, but
Yet.
yeah. With me dragging Lina into video games, she'll probably drag me into kernel development. I don't know.
I think one of those takes a little bit more effort to get yourself involved in.
I mean, I make my own programming languages. I make my own game engines and programming languages for fun. A kernel driver can't be that bad. Famous last words.
You know what the funny is? I keep mentioning that, but like we're actually in a VTuber group with 2 other VTubers, and like all 4 of us are like the perfect layer stack. Because we have Keitan at the top writing like actual games in Unity, and then there's Luna writing game engines, and I'm writing like GPU drivers, and then Akinyan is like doing like FPGAs and like hardware development.
Oh, geez, okay.
And so it's like the perfect 4-layer stack, all the way from like transistors to like Unity games. It's so great.
That's actually awesome.
Yeah, K10 is actually making a game called Toaster Crash right now. That's like it's gonna be uploaded to the point of life. It's like I can't remember what it's like. It's I don't know, parody, I guess, of an older Flash game or something. And I'm in it apparently. Well, everyone from the point of life is in it, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see that thing finished. She works on the game on stream.
I will what was her name? I'll bring up the channel right now.
Okay, give me a moment. I'll get you a link.
Oh yeah, if you just give me the link,
Did you want her?
If you could just give me the
Do
link.
you want her Twitch or her?
Whatever you want to give me. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna send her Twitter because she posts announcements about streams there.
Okay, here we go. I'll bring it up on the thing. There we go. Wait, should we put you back on the thing so people can see you move? Yeah, here we go. And awesome, there we go. Yeah, so go check that out if you want to see some cool stuff being done, I guess. What else do I actually have on this list of topics? What do I have? I think I went over a lot of it, actually.
Is your, okay, sorry. I was gonna ask if your camera's okay because I was really glitching out here, but it just fixed itself right now.
Oh no, the camera that you're seeing is just being shown to you. So even though it looks genuinely terrible, it should be fine on my side, I hope. But the UVC can be weird sometimes.
Yeah. By the way, you asked me to like say something to write on the whiteboard earlier. Is it something that'll be showed later, or is it just something we can't see from this side?
Oh, you can't see it here. But I've got this written. Oh, can't see. There we go. Wait, now if I just hold it here, then you can see me properly. Wait. Wait, why does it do that? I guess it causes it to white balance properly.
We can see it. We can see it.
Sure. No.
Wow.
Oh, now my face looks terrible again.
It is different text than what I said, but that's also pretty good.
I didn't remember what you said when I went to go and write it.
Yeah, I said world hard and cold Foxgirl soft and warm. Just something really dumb.
Well, I don't think I have much else to talk about in here. Do either of you have anything else you want to really bring up?
My tail is fluffy.
Your tail is fluffy. True.
Yes. Never changed. No, but actually, I remember I was going to mention something when you mentioned licenses, because everything we're doing for Asahi Linux is mostly like MIT or BSD licensed also.
Yep.
And it's kind of for the same reason, right? Because we actually want BSD to be able to use these drivers. The TRM stack Linux is actually mostly BSD licensed for that reason, because like BSD just kind of takes it wholesale,
Mhm.
and that I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like even if it's if the core OS is licensed very differently, we can still share these drivers. And actually, funny enough, right now, OpenBSD is the only OS that supports the M1 natively other than Asahi Linux. Like,
Mhm.
we have an option in our installer for UEFI, like bare UEFI bootloader.
Mhm.
And literally the only project that officially you can use with that is OpenBSD right now.
I wonder when
So yeah, no,
FreeBSD will join that.
I wonder. And also even Windows, right? Like people are talking about Windows on the M1.
Mhm.
You can't actually port Windows to the M1 natively if you're not Microsoft.
Yep.
Because of like technicalities of the kernel that need to change that are not possible to change it, like by just adding drivers. But there's you can mess around with virtualization to sort of work around that, even if it's still mostly native. And there's actually someone working on that. And if it gets to that point, obviously they should be able to use the GPU drivers, right? And port them to Windows if they want. So yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time that Microsoft's had a source code leak for an operating system. So hey,
Well,
I mean,
I'm also pretty sure that eventually Microsoft is gonna like upgrade their kernel to work with like different page sizes as well. There's more ARM devices
well,
like
the main issue there is actually because we can do 4K on the M1 fine. The main issue that they have right now is the interrupt controller, because the Apple
oh
one is non-standard, and Microsoft that only supports the standard one and the Raspberry
oh
Pi one, which is another weird thing. Like they made a special patch for the Raspberry Pi, and that's like the only weird one. But you can't actually plug that in through a driver, so yeah. What you are doing is basically virtualizing that. Like you're having a very, very thin VM and just sort of making a virtual interrupt controller, and probably using UEFI and DACP and all that. But then keeping the rest of the hardware native. In theory, you could just write drivers for that. Which, by the way, is the same thing we do for macOS. When we reverse engineer macOS, we run it on a virtual machine that also runs like bare metal and runs the real version of macOS, not like Apple's VMs, which are not running the real version of macOS. They run a special kernel, but this actually runs the real bare metal kernel in a VM, and then we can just snoop on all the hardware, right? So that's how that works.
what do you mean by that? I don't use Mac. I'm not sure what you meant by they don't use a real Mac OS.
So
uh
if you run macOS on an M1 and the VM inside an M1 like the official way, the kernel in the VM is a special kernel because the VM is it's not virtualizing an M1. It's virtualizing a generic ARM system. And
Okay.
so that's why you can install Linux in a VM in an M1 on macOS, because Linux sees a generic ARM system.
Right.
And it's the same
Okay.
for macOS. Like
I
Apple
I do
literally
wonder
compiled macOS to run on non-M1 systems for VMs.
I do wonder if you could then get macOS running on a like Raspberry Pi or like any like just generic ARM system using that.
You can, and people actually did that on QEMU, like even before macOS officially supported this. The main problem is that it wants a pair of virtual metal GPU device to actually give you a desktop. So you can get like
Ah,
single mode macOS in a VM that's not an MM1. But if you
well,
want a desktop, you're gonna have to implement metal, which is a bit of a bigger project.
the thing is that the macOS code is actually open source, so someone could just like make a version of Darwin that does support like just standard ARM devices, I assume.
Actually, it already has code for Raspberry Pi. Like Apple
Oh,
have that in the official source notes. I guess it's like they're like not a Mac test platform. So I don't know how broken it is, but in principle, you can compile the macOS kernel for like a Raspberry Pi. You'll probably have to write a lot of drivers though.
but still.
It sounds like some engineer at Apple was like, let's just see what happens here and just make it work. Because people can look
It
at
does seem
Apple
like
as a company, as like, whatever you want to feel about Apple's, repairability practices and things like that. But Apple has a lot of like really intelligent engineers who probably just want to do a lot of really cool things.
And you can tell from the hardware and the software, really. Like, there's a lot of really, really cool engineering in these things, and that's the sort of part of the fun part, right? It's actually it's actually a lot cleaner than most of the other vendors.
it's also
So,
probably
yeah,
cleaner than a PC because the PC is like bloated with legacy.
that too.
Hey, but you gotta
Gates
be able to run your
A20,
Windows
anyone?
98 software. Like,
Gates A20, anyone? Does anyone remember that?
I don't remember that well. I'll have to be reminded.
It was this thing where, like, back when PCs had like 1 megabyte of RAM, and then they added more, and some applications assumed that the 1 megabyte wrapped around to 0
Oh.
at the end. And
Oh
so they
yeah.
literally added like an AND gate on that pin of the CPU to turn it off. And that's still there.
jeez. Yeah, it's fine. Leave it there. It's not doing any harm.
Backwards compatibility.
It's so cursed.
People back then, engineers back then had very little knowledge of what they were doing because it was all still new.
Well, you gotta make it work with the hardware that was available. You don't have, 128 gigs of RAM like you do now. You just hack it until it functions.
Computers are truly cursed. We should never have tricked Brox into thinking.
And then here am I running 3D apps on top of like Mesa on Python on a USB link on a proxy on a thing that then sends it back to HDMI. And then goes through my VTuber stack, which is also cursed, because then it's like HDMI to an FFmpeg window, to another like upscale, then downscale through another HDMI to OBS. Yeah.
It sounds like everything that you're doing is just cursed.
My tracking was glitching out for a moment.
What can I say? It's just what we do.
Well, if none of you have anything else to say, I think that's as good of a point to end it as anything.
Sounds good to me.
Lina, where can people?
Everyone needs to get out of this is that everything I do is completely cursed and tons of fun, and you should watch my streams.
Well, I was gonna say, where can people find you, Lina?
So I'm on Twitter at Lina Asahi because Asahi Lina was taken. And my YouTube channel is Asahi Lina. But you can just Google like Asahi Lina and it'll show up. Like I stream on YouTube, usually on Wednesdays and Fridays. And I'm on Twitter, and we have a Discord too with Luna and the other No Pointer Life girls. So that's linked on the No Pointer Life Twitter account. Luna.
I am on, I'm Twitch, on Twitter, Luna Foxgirl VT. That's where you can find me. I don't stream that much right now because I'm very busy, but like once I do debut, I plan to stream at least twice a week.
Not 10-hour streams?
And yeah. We'll see about that.
I didn't plan on streaming 10 hours. It just sort of happened.
I mean, if I go hyper focus, I'd also just kind of forget that like I'm alive for 10 hours, and then I just wake up like, wait, why is the sun up? And why is it up in the other side of the scenery?
At least these days, people got me to remember to like buy some like snacks before a stream. So usually, like halfway through a stream, I'll be like, okay, I'm taking a break to have a little snack. I'll be right
I was
back.
gonna ask you, do you actually eat during those streams, or do you just like?
I
keep
keep
going?
still reminding.
There's usually like a snack break or two.
Okay, good.
I do also in chat remind her after like 9 to 10 hours to also eat dinner.
Because I usually start the stream like right after lunch.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, like an early lunch and like late dinner. So yeah, I kind of need a snack halfway through.
Well, if you guys got nothing else to shout out, then I'll do my outro.
Well,
Was there anything else you want to mention?
I'm Foxgirl. No, I didn't.
I'll have all of your links in the description down below. If there's anything that you forgot to mention, just send me the link and I'll put it down below so then people can go and find it. Well,
good.
yeah, that has been episode 121. I am your host, Brody Robertson. You can go find me over on my main channel. That is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos, tech videos, things like that. I've got a gaming channel, Brody Robertson Plays. I stream there twice a week usually. Right now playing Hollow Knight and Kingdom Hearts 2. Usually the YouTube shorts go up every other day of the week for the most part. If you're listening to the audio version of this, the video version is available on YouTube. If you're a video watcher, the audio version is available anywhere that you can find podcasts. There's an RSS feed as well, so just chuck it into whatever app you want to use. There's some pretty good ones out there that are open source, like AnchorPod, for example. But yeah, you'll find it on iTunes, wherever you want to find it. Give me the final word. What do you want to say, Lena? What do you want to say, Luna?
I don't know. Thank you so much for having us. And yeah, if you're interested at all in all this like low-level coding stuff, I actually kind of forgot to say that the reason why I stream all this stuff is because I want people to be interested. I want people to be curious, to learn, and to figure out that they can do it. Anyone can do this. So please, if you're interested at all, join in and ask questions. Join our Discord. Like I'll be happy to answer. And if what I do and the streams I make get people interested in this kind of stuff, that would make me very, very happy. So please, like, stay curious and always, never think that you can't do anything.
And
How are you gonna up that?
I had something and now I forgot it. Oh god, no. I'm soft and fluffy, and good night. I don't know.
It's okay. She's only like revolutionizing the VTuber world. So
Yeah, well,
that's just
a little thing.
Oh yeah, now I remember. Notch Creator 0.0.3 is out soon. Please give it a shot. There's app images and someone's working on a Flatpak, and there's also Windows release, and I have to. Oh god, I need to figure out how to get it work on Mac.
Well, you're both welcome back on the show whenever you want. If you have a major release of Notch 2D or anything crazy happens with the GPU project or anything else you're involved in with the Asahi Lina side, if you want to come back and talk about it, absolutely free to do so.
Sounds good.
Maybe next time, once I'm like rendering actually streaming from Asahi on the driver, maybe that'd be a good. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That'd be a good time.
Well, yeah. I guess that's gonna be it then. So, see you guys later.
Yeah. See ya. Thank you so much.